For 60 years, one breakthrough has sat at the very top of the wish list for every computer scientist alive, and nobody on Earth could reach it. A machine that improves itself, not a machine that engineers upgrade, a machine that reads its own code, makes itself smarter, rewrites itself, and then does it again on its own, faster every time. And in June of 2026, the country that stood up and said it had found the path to it was not the United States. It was China. Backed by a national mission that Xi Jinping made one of the defining goals of his rule, Chinese companies have built artificial intelligence that has started doing the one thing machines were never supposed to do by themselves. These systems make themselves smarter with no human holding the pen. This is the story of how China got there first, why it was able to when no one else could, and what the rest of the world is now scrambling to do about it. If you enjoy videos about the technology quietly reshaping our world, hit like and subscribe so you never miss one. Now let us look at exactly what China did, because the proof is more solid than you would think. It started publicly at a forum most people in the West have never heard of. China's government-backed technology event is where the country shows off what it wants the world to see. There, a researcher named Luo Fuli, the lead developer behind an AI model from the Chinese tech company Xiaomi, stood in front of a room full of officials and investors and said it plainly. Self-evolution, AI that improves itself, would be the single biggest trend in the field over the coming year. And then she went further than anyone in the West had dared to in public. She told them her team had already found a real workable path to get there. That is not a dreamer. That is a frontline Chinese engineer speaking at a state event, telling her country's most powerful people that the impossible is now an engineering project with a timeline. And here's the part that turns the speech into something real. It's already inside machines you can name. Take a Chinese company called MiniMax. In early 2026, it released an AI called M2.7. And the astonishing thing about it is not how fast it is how it was made. The company says earlier versions of the AI were used to help build the next version. The machine helped construct the very system that produced its own successor. By their own account, that model now does between 30 and 50% of the research work that goes into improving an AI. Stop and picture that. A machine doing up to half the job of building a smarter machine. That is the loop scientists have feared for 60 years, finally starting to turn, and it is turning in China. Then there is Alibaba, the giant behind much of China's AI, whose top system was built to run on its own for up to 35 hours straight, working through long, complicated tasks without a person steering each step. So how did China end up in front? This is the part that matters most, and the answer leads straight back to the top. Years ago, under Xi Jinping, Beijing did something the West never did. It declared artificial intelligence a national mission, not a private sector hobby, but a state priority, written into the country's economic plans, poured into its universities, and pushed onto its biggest companies with the full weight of the government behind them. While American breakthroughs came from scattered private labs competing with each other, China aimed an entire nation at the same target. And the scale that produced is hard to even picture. One Chinese model family alone, called Qwen and made by Alibaba, has spawned more than 100,000 different versions around the world, the largest free AI ecosystem on the planet, bigger than anything out of Google or Meta. Here is the single number that tells the whole story. Just 1 year ago, Chinese AI models made up less than 2% of the traffic on one of the world's biggest AI platforms. By April of 2026, they had crossed 45%. In 12 months, China went from a rounding error to nearly half the world. That is not catching up. That is taking the lead. And it did not happen by accident. It happened because one man pointed a country at it and did not blink. To understand why this is such a big deal, you have to understand why it was impossible for so long. The dream itself is old. Back in 1965, a British mathematician named Jack Good imagined a machine smart enough to design an even better machine, which would design a better one still, each step faster than the last, until it raced past every human mind on Earth. He called it an intelligence explosion. For 6 decades it stayed fiction because of a cruel catch. To improve an AI, you need an AI already smart enough to do the work, to read hard research, form real ideas, and write code that runs. For most of those 60 years, no machine came close. You couldn't build a self-improving AI because no AI was smart enough to improve anything. The door was locked and the key was on the other side. The machines only became good enough to start picking that lock in the last couple of years, and China, having spent years preparing for exactly this moment, was ready to run the instant the lock clicked. And the prize is worth running for because of one terrifying piece of math. A normal advantage fades, you build something better, rivals copy it, the race resets. But an AI that improves itself never rests, never slows, and never stops. Every gain it makes helps it make the next gain. The progress does not add up, it multiplies, like compound interest doubling on itself again and again. So the first nation to truly crack this does not just win a round. It could open a lead that grows so fast, no one else can ever close it. Whoever gets there first, in theory, leaves everyone else behind permanently. That is why this is not really a story about chatbots. It is a story about who runs the next 100 years, which is exactly why the rest of the world is now reacting with something close to alarm. In June of 2026, an American lab called Anthropic, the maker of the Claude AI, admitted its own newest system was edging toward this same self-improvement ability. But it did not celebrate. It warned. The company publicly called for the entire industry to keep open the option to hit pause on AI development worldwide the moment these systems get powerful enough to start upgrading themselves. One of the most respected labs on Earth asking for a brake pedal before anyone is even sure they need one. When the people racing hardest start begging for brakes, you learn how fast they think the car is about to go. And the money is moving even faster than the fear. A top researcher named Tianyuan Dong, born in Shanghai, trained in America, who spent a decade leading AI research at one of the biggest US tech companies, walked away in May of 2026 to start a company with a name that hides nothing: recursive superintelligence. With fewer than 30 employees and no product to sell, investors handed it $650 million at a valuation of $4.5 billion. Among the backers were Nvidia and AMD, the two companies that make the chips this technology runs on. And he is far from alone. The pioneer Yan LeCun left his post to launch a new lab that raised $1 billion in the spring of 2026. David Silver, one of the minds behind the famous AI that mastered the ancient game of Go, locked in $1.1 billion just weeks later. In April in Rio de Janeiro, the world's researchers held what is believed to be the first scientific gathering ever devoted entirely to self-improving AI, a subject that until recently, serious scientists barely wanted their names attached to. The biggest names and the biggest money on Earth are now sprinting at the same finish line China is already running toward. And the urgency in their voices says everything about how seriously they take China's head start. So let's be straight about the title of this video. Is it out of control? No. There is no rogue Chinese AI seizing the world's computers tonight, and the machines we talked about are powerful tools helping their own creators, not free agents loose behind a locked door. The honest truth is that nobody has crossed the final line into a fully unstoppable loop yet. Not in China and not anywhere. But here's why even the calmest experts are uneasy. When an AI starts changing its own programming, it gets harder for people to understand why it does what it does. Tianyuan Dong himself, a man building one of these systems, says being able to look inside the machine and understand its choices gets more important on this path, not less. If a system starts improving itself and something goes wrong, you need to know why. And the faster it changes, the harder that becomes. That's the real reason serious people want a pause button built before it's needed. You don't install brakes after the car is already rolling downhill. You install them first. So where does this go from here? If China holds its lead and this technology works the way its builders believe it will, the country that controls a self-improving AI would not just dominate one industry. Its machines would accelerate everything they touch. New medicines, faster chips, cleaner energy, stronger defense, a compounding edge in the one technology that improves all the others. The experts argue fiercely about timing. Some say a few years, others say decades, others say the explosion will be a slow climb instead of a sudden leap, and the honest answer is that nobody knows for certain. But what is no longer in doubt is the direction. The dream Jack Good wrote down in 1965 has stopped being a thought experiment and become a target, and right now, with a whole nation aimed at it from the top down, China is the one running hardest toward the line, while the rest of the world races to catch up before it is too late.